Welcome to the talk show, Lighting the Educational Flame, with your host, Mark Hoberman. The goal of this show is to provide a learning experience to people of all ages, with guests from various fields and academics, a wide range of industries, and insight into the many forms of art, athletics, and entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the talk show, Lighting the Educational Flame, brought to you by Great Success Education. I'm your host, Mark Hoberman. Our special guest today is multi-sport athlete, race car driver, Matt Jaskol. Matt, welcome to Lighting the Educational Flame.
Thanks for having me on, Mark.
My pleasure. Actually, you're in Las Vegas, right?
I just hopped on a plane, but I live in Las Vegas. Yeah.
Okay. So for my 18th birthday present, I live in Florida. My parents said, let's go and have your birthday present in Las Vegas. That was my trip. So you're in Las Vegas. Yeah, you're in Las Vegas, and so is my money. But that was a horribly gambling family, but that was a great trip. I haven't been there since, so that's over 40 years, and I hear it's quite different now.
You have not been to Vegas in 40 years.
No, my son went with his friends about a year or two ago, and he said, you have to go, you have to go, you have to go. So I really do have to fly out there.
I think we should change that at some point, man. Yeah, you're definitely, a lot has changed, but it's an amazing place.
If I can get a ride with you in your car around the track, it's a deal.
We can make that happen.
Excellent, excellent. You know, I can understand that the fast-paced allure of racing cars and the movies, but when did you first become interested in racing?
Yeah, you know, I love getting that question a lot because everybody, oh, you must be adrenaline junkie and Need for Speed. You know, I started before I even understood any of that. You know, so I started out in motocross and racing dirt bikes at the age of 5 years old. Yeah. And then by the age of 10, I was racing go-karts, and not the kind of go-karts, you know, that you think, you know, not, these were professional, you know, 50, 60 mile an hour go-karts at only the age of 10 years old. By the time I was 14 years old, I had won my first racing scholarship and had moved into cars and essentially had gone professional about the age of 14 or 15 years old. So it sounds cliche, but it was my life. It was a lifestyle that I didn't know any different, you know?
Well, motocross to me is so different than a race car. So, because I know people do the motocross for a career. So what made you decide to make the shift from motocross to race car driving?
I would like to think, and my parents would probably tell you as well, I was a very, very mindful young man. You know, I was extremely mindful. I probably got that from, you know, my heritage and my family. And only at the age of 10 years old, I was getting injured. I got my first concussion at only the age of 10 years old. And that upset my mom a lot. And even I was upset about it. My body hurt a lot. You know, I had, you know, knee pain. And I remember thinking at only the age of 10, I was like, I am way too young to feel this old, to feel this beat up. And then what actually triggered something was I was watching some of my heroes on TV. I was watching Jeff Ward and, you know, some famous motocross names that a lot of people wouldn't even remember today. And they were retiring. And I was watching them do their final races on TV. And I'm going, wait a minute. They're only like 29 years old. I was like, that's not very long from now, you know? And so I started searching and realized that you can have a much longer, safer career on four wheels than you could at four. And my parents even kind of shook their head because I had made that decision at 10 years old.
Incredible. I can tell you that if I said to my mother, I'm not going to do motocross racing anymore, she would be happy, I'm going to do race car driving. She's yeah, I don't think so, but thanks for that input. And if I were 10, it would just be like, go to your room and shut up. So it's incredible the age that you had that passion. So, you know,
yeah.
I just love watching movies with great car chases. I remember the greatest scene from Bullet from so many years ago. But that's very different from what you do. And I know you've done many types of different driving in your career. But what can you tell us about your experiences with being a stunt driver?
Yeah, so you know, it's actually not a glorious entry. So not to sound, you know, I'm just call a spade a spade. I'm very open, very transparent. So I'll tell you the truth. You know, it does sound cool but it's so hard to get into doing like really big stuff, right? Like big movies. So I have done a lot of very cool stunt driving for like commercials and car manufacturers, a few little movies, that nobody's probably even heard of. And I did one for Crispin Glover, who was George McFly, in Back to the Future. So he had some like low budget horror movie came out. I did some stunt driving for that a couple years ago, which was a lot of fun. And I just did some stunt driving for the new Virgin Hotel. For Richard Branson. He bought out the Hard Rock Hotel in Las Vegas, and so I did some stunt driving for that. But believe it or not, for myself as a professional race car driver most of my life, you get into doing stunt driving as a means to make money because you're not racing. So there's a few stunt drivers out there that I'm friends with that is their mission, that's their goal. Maybe they didn't even have much racing. Right. I have a friend who lost his leg, and he's he lost it on a trampoline, not even in motorsports. He was doing gymnastics, funny enough. And he's still a great race car driver, but his father was involved in Hollywood. So he, made the transition into just doing movies and not racing anymore. And it's really hard to get into, but yeah, I got into it as a product of, you just get a phone call. I was, I'm very lucky, but it's, oh, hey, Jaskol is a good driver and he's not doing anything. Give him a call. So that's kind of how I got into doing some of the stunt driving stuff.
Well, the stunt driving, the thing that I see on all TV shows, you see the car almost run into somebody or actually run into somebody. Is that what you're doing? You're doing things that, you're crashing in and you're doing something I'm not willing to get paid to do? Are you just like really, what's the danger level?
I actually haven't. So I would say, because I always even tell people to not try to hype or to not try to sound cooler than it is. I try to keep things very real. So I'll even tell friends and family, if I'm on a set, I'll be like, I'm stunt driving, because everybody envisions me flipping a car or crashing into something. 90% of the time it's precision driving. It's really just about hitting your marks. You might be peeling out or drifting, but you're not. Very, very few times these days are you doing like really big crash scenes. And there's a very small group of men and women that do that in the stunt community. And again, it's hard to get into that because they kind of have the monopoly on it. But most of my stuff, I've done some cool chase scenes for some TV shows and that were like filmed in Vegas. And but never crash. I've actually never done any super crazy crash things or anything like that. Mostly precision driving.
Gotcha. Matt, because we're an educational show, our viewers are often interested in the education needed to follow your passion. It doesn't just have to be academic necessarily. So what are some important lessons you learned while you started to hone your craft?
It's cool that you bring that up, because one of the number one things that I mentor, I've been teaching. So I've been a racing instructor. I've been a race car driving instructor since the age of 15 years old. And what I always try to tell young drivers, or even just racing enthusiasts who maybe have no intention of going racing, because I've done both ends of the spectrum. I've mentored Indy 500 champions such as Alexander Rossi, all the way to just to a CEO executive that just wants to drive, and have a good time. I've led programs like Teens Drive Smart, which was the program that Bridgestone ran for many years. So for every hour that is spent on the track that everybody thinks, man, you're a race car driver, it must be so much fun. For every hour spent on the track, there's about 10 hours in a classroom, whether you're with the engineer, whether you're studying the track, doing simulator practice now with the advent of simulators, running numbers, being on in a wind tunnel. There is so much that goes into being a successful race car driver with an entire team behind you, and all the way down to precision driving. There's so much analytics that go on, and something that I've loved as a racing instructor and as a professional driver my whole life is the curriculum, the classroom. There is a huge, racing is not just this beautiful, art that it used to be anymore. Now with cars becoming more sophisticated and technologically advanced, there is a huge amount of time that gets spent with the engineers or in a classroom learning about vehicle dynamics, and aerodynamics and things like that. So there's a lot of classroom that goes along with the drive, so to speak.
Well, I want to circle back to the level of respect that you had to command at 15. If I'm having a driving lesson and I get in the car and I see you there at 15, I'm saying, nice to meet you. Go back to homeroom and get your dad, because I'm not driving with you today. But sure it doesn't sound like that happened.
No, you nailed it perfectly. Listen, something pretty amazing that you'll appreciate. I was the chief instructor of a kart racing school. Again, these karts were like what were called shifter karts. These were 100-mile-an-hour. This was a world-class go-kart racing track that was owned by a world-famous race car driver. So this wasn't your indoor, go-karts. These were very sophisticated. The kart that you could drive was upwards of $10,000-$15,000. I mean, it was a very sophisticated piece of machinery that came out of Italy, and very advanced equipment. At 16 years old, I was the chief instructor, and we had 1 all the way to 4-day advanced racing schools where we would spend a lot of time about the theory of racing. Again, about racing craft and vehicle dynamics, corner dynamics, geometry of corners. There's a lot that goes into being a proper race car driver. And so I used to be the instructor for all of the professors from UNLV in Las Vegas. Once a year, a group of about 30 professors would come out, and the first time they showed up, they're like, "Who's this kid? Where's the adult that's going to train us?" And they would come every year for about 3 years until I was 18 years old, till I moved on to go racing more. And so to tell you a funny little story, which is relevant, even if you're not a racing fan, you may have heard of the Indy 500, right? It's right. Largest single day sporting event in the world, biggest race in the world, biggest stage of motorsports in the world. Oldest racing. It's the oldest racetrack in the planet. It's the oldest sporting complex next to the Coliseum in Rome. Pretty amazing. More than 100 years old now. The 105th running of the Indy 500 is coming up here in May. So when I'm 16 years old, and a father and a young man named Alexander Rossi, they show up to Las Vegas. They come to the racetrack, and the father walks in, and I'm there. I'm there at the front counter, of course. I was pretty much the one running the place. And he goes, "Hey, I want my kid to do a racing school. Like, who do I talk to?" And I'm pimply faced practically, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's me right here." And he literally, I'll never forget. He looks around and he tells the story even better than I do. And he goes, "No, yeah, is there an adult I can talk to or something?" And I went, "Yeah, look, I know I'm young, but I'm the champion here. I've won everything there is to win on this track, and I'm the racing instructor. I'm the guy you want to talk to." And he just kind of goes, "Okay, well, I want my kid to, I don't really know. He's never driven anything, but we were just thinking about maybe getting him into racing." And, I said, "Well, you've come to the right place, and I'm the guy you should talk to." And, and I was pretty much one of the number 1 karting drivers in America at the time. And so I coached Alexander Rossi for 4 days, did a 4-day driving school with him.
How old was he at the time?
He was only 9 years old. I was 16. And I did a 4-day advanced racing school with him in a junior kart that still goes about 60 miles an hour, at top speed. And he was great. I remember his father looked at me and said, "What do you think?" And his father remembers even better than I do. And I go, "Your kid is very unique. He was different." I was like, "He listens very well. He's very articulate. He's very intelligent. And everything I told him to do, he executes perfectly." I was like, "Listen, racing is a difficult business. It's a ugly sport. It can be a great sport, but an ugly business, And I said, "Listen, if you want your kid to get into racing, I think he might have the talent, but just know it's going to be difficult. And here's my card, and I'm available to mentor and help and do private coaching." And make a long story long, Alexander Rossi went on to race. He made it all the way to Formula One, and he won the 100th running of the Indy 500 in 2016. And I was there with him.
Tremendous.
It was amazing.
Great story. When people come to you, is it only to, like, if I came to you as a businessman, I would want to get in a car and race the car. I don't want 2 cars next to me. I don't want to be in a race. Are these people coming to say, "I want to feel that fast, I want to be in the quote unquote fast lane"? Or are they coming to you to say, "Yeah, I wouldn't mind being in an amateur race or something like that"? Because I don't want, and nobody wants me in a race with them. I'm telling you right now. So, what does that look like? My life has shifted and changed a lot, but I've always stayed, pretty true to my roots somehow. So, from coaching at a young age at a young go-kart track at 16 years old to many years later, starting in 2012, I was the chief instructor of a premier driving experience, not even a racing school. It was truly and again, this was never a thing in the 90s or early 2000s, but as things have changed and evolved, now we have these racing experiences where you can truly, or driving experience where you can go drive an exotic car, your dream car, on a racetrack at speed. You can, literally push it to the limit of your ability with an instructor sitting next to you. And so that's dream racing in Las Vegas, where
In 2012, I became the chief instructor, and I was their chief instructor until about 2016. My father had a heart attack, survived open heart surgery, but I left my job as a racing instructor, driving instructor, high performance driving instructor, to take over the family business. But I still work at Dream Racing, and we have many levels. And it's so perfect what you say, because we can take the average person that just wants to come in and experience a dream car and driving fast, and we can do that for them. Or we can do a more advanced program to somebody that's maybe interested in racing. And we've had men just like you, Mark, who come in and go, professionals. I actually took the heir to Minute Maid orange juice. Took him in a race car, and he wasn't sure he wanted to race, but I ended up working with him for a couple of days. He ended up signing on to do our little mock race program. And now he wants to become a race car driver amateurly, but so we have every level, from the people that just want to do 5 laps and drive their dream car to somebody that wants to hone their skills and potentially go racing at an amateur level.
You've done so many things, and I've done my research on you, but some of these things you're saying now really blows me away, the different things you've done, being an instructor and things of that nature. But I know you were also a cast member on the TV show Castaways, which
That's right.
Some have called, a survivor without the competition. But can you share some of your experiences on that show with us?
Yeah, God, what a crazy experience. That was just back in 2017, let's call it 28, early 2018 now. It feels like a whole lifetime ago, but I got a phone call, and of course it was through my life background of motorsports. Believe it or not, it was a man involved in motorsports that had followed my career since the age of 12 years old. I would call him a fan more than anything. He wasn't even a really close friend. He was just this nice man that worked in kart racing, and I'd see him, at the racetrack and stuff. And he was very good friends with a mentor of mine, and he calls me up and goes, "Hey, a producer friend of mine is casting for a TV show, and I think you should look at it. I think you might be great for it." And I started looking into it, and I wasn't interested because it said it could involve surviving on a deserted jungle island for up to 2 months without food or shelter. I laughed and was like, "You got the wrong."
Who would say that? Oh, that's for me. I have to do this.
When I talked to I humored the woman, the producer, and she goes, "Listen, it'd be a great life experience. It could change your life. You tell your life story, but it involves surviving on a deserted jungle island for up to 2 months without food or shelter." And I laughed and said, "Lady, you got the wrong guy."
She's saying life experience. I'm hearing death experience.
I heard the same. I heard that you said I could die out there, right?
Yeah. Right.
So, but what's crazy is I never turn away a challenge, and believe it or not, I actually said no. I turned it down because I had a lot going on. My mother, sadly, at the time was suffering mental illness for the first time. Yeah, it was very difficult. We didn't really know what was going on. And my father's still recovering from a heart. He's only less than 2 years from open heart surgery and triple bypass, and me running the family business. And my life's a little bit upside down at the moment. And I'm a little bit stressed out. And I listen to this lady and I go, "Listen, you got the wrong guy. It's the wrong time." And they kept pursuing me. They saw maybe he is the right guy. He's got the story we want. He's got the.
You were definitely a good fit.
Yeah.
I have another reason they were chasing you. The other 47 people they spoke to hung up the phone.
They had a very short list of people, I'm sure. So I mean, again, long story long, as I like to say, I said no to it at first, and then I said, well, maybe I should humor this. And I went to my parents, who I thought would say no for sure. I basically take care of my parents at the time, sure. And they both said, "Hey, this could be amazing. We don't want to be the reason you don't do the biggest thing of your life." And I was like, "Uh-oh, maybe I'm going in the jungle." And it would take me hours to explain to you how insane and intense it was, but it was an ABC production, so it was massive. The producer was the creator of the TV show Alone on History Channel. So this was tens of millions of dollars. So the level at which it was done to preserve an amazing experience was mind-blowing. They truly tried to create something so real, and they did. Do you remember the TV show Lost?
I never missed an episode of Lost. This
was the real life unscripted version of Lost. We just weren't dead, at the end of, it was, right.
Yeah, which we didn't know till the end anyway.
Right. So that's what they created for. And that even when ABC said that, they were like, let's try to create the real life version of Lost. Let's take unique individuals who have really unique, difficult, maybe they're going through a hard time and hard lives. I mean, they had a few military people out there. They had a woman who was like living in the streets of New York. I mean, they took people they took a 400-pound man that was suffering, not obesity, he was suffering addiction, and food was his addiction.
I don't remember the name. I've spoken with him on the phone.
Robbie Gibbons.
Yes. I think that's him. He's a motivational speaker at schools too.
Amazing. Yes. That's wow. I had no idea. That's so amazing.
Oh, world. I totally forgot till you said it, to be honest.
Yeah. So I meet Robbie out there. So they had these really interesting people from all different walks of life, and let's scatter them as if a plane crashed and see how they survive and see what, and the true mission of their purpose of the show was to document human transformation. Let's take these human beings, let's flash back to their lives at home, and then now let's see how they're changing as human beings. It was the most emotional, most difficult, most amazing life experience I'd ever gone through in my life. I mean, I starved in a jungle for day 31. I was actually in physical medical starvation, and I was
there where you look at them and say, I'm starving, give me a piece of bread.
So the thing is too, people haters, the disbelievers, like, oh, well, they're watching you. You're not alone. Listen, we were in the most dense, deserted jungle island you could ever imagine. And the production crew, they were living on boats miles away, and they would only film us about 6 hours a day. Then they would pack up their gear, get on a boat, and you were alone. There wasn't medical tent down the road. There was nothing. They even spoke to you before this whole journey started that, hey, be careful what you do and how you move, because if you make the wrong step, we're going to be recovering your body the next day. Those were the words they used: recover your body. And that was the moment that I said, can I call my attorney again? I need to go.
My parents again, they're crazy. They put me up to this.
Yeah, they told me I had to do this. And so it truly was. What's that?
How many total people were on the show at that time?
There was
for a couple of weeks and someone else, or was it?
No. So again, such a big production. They didn't want you to know anything. I didn't know. I never knew until after the show was over how many human beings were going to be on the show. So they actually there was 12 human beings, 12 cast members. And it was such a big production. There was 12 different crews that went to different states to film all these different individuals. And I had like 7 crew members following me for about 6 weeks. They filmed my life for 6 weeks at home. And then when we were out in the jungle, there was 12 of us, but we were scattered across 17 miles over 5 different islands. So that's why I try to tell people this was not Survivor. This was nothing like it, actually. This was truly a social experiment to see how regular human beings would survive. Will they look in, and ABC didn't even know what was going to happen. Will they look for others? Will they stay alone? What will happen when they find other people? Will they get along or not? And how will they try to survive to the end? And they even scattered us on purpose, knowing that not everybody would find one another. They did that. They purposely scattered us so far apart, knowing that these people over here might not ever find those people over there. And let's see what happens. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy.
Incredible. What an experience. And I know you're always so busy. So what are your upcoming projects?
Well, if you see behind me there, and this is it is crazy in itself. It's not normal because my life has been anything but. I've been a struggling race car driver the last 10 years. Ever since the economic collapse, even nearly more than 10 years ago now, my life struggled. I was out of a race car professionally. I didn't have the funding and sponsorship to be in a race car full time. And I was lucky just to race a couple times a year, here and there. And then like I said, it's actually not a glorious thing. It's almost like a washed up race car driver. If you're not racing, you're working at a racing school, or it sounds sad to say, but I do truly equate it. It's no different than like a baseball player. Maybe he's still fast. He can still throw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, but he's working at a batting cage because he can't get on with a professional team. Racing is a very weird business. It's pay to play. People don't understand that. It's not just racing is one of the few sports, sadly, where talent guarantees you nothing. You have to have money and funding and sponsorship. And then with family setbacks, right? With family illness and things like that, I really couldn't focus on racing. I just had to pay bills. Then I used my skill set, which was coaching other drivers, working at racing schools and things like that. And out of nowhere, it just happened this February. I got a phone call from a friend that I met when I was 15 years old, racing go-karts in Las Vegas. And he created a business that has become very successful, called Lift Kits for Less. It's lift kits for trucks. The business went public. He is now launching the platform Auto Parts for Less, which is the first ever multi-vendor, platform similar to like an Amazon, but only for auto parts. Okay. And it's all about, life is all about, and this was a huge life lesson. The reason he called me was because I made an impression on him 20 years ago as a good young man. And we've remained friends over 20 years. And he saw my talent and he saw my ability even as a young man. And he's, smart enough about racing to know that a lot of it's political and financially driven. And I didn't know this, but he told himself 20 years ago, if I ever have a chance to help somebody, I'm going to help that guy, Matt. And 20 years later, I could get emotional talking about it. 20 years later, this guy calls me up just in February and says, Matt, business is really good. I've always wanted to help you and it makes sense for my business. I want to go NASCAR racing. What do you think? Within 2 weeks, I had a NASCAR ride and I'm racing at the top level of NASCAR. I'm racing the Xfinity series in NASCAR. I have a 7 race. It was only supposed to be 4. Now it's expanded to 7 races. I did my first ever debut NASCAR race just 2 weeks ago in Martinsville, Virginia, on the famous half mile there. We did very well. Finished. We were running up to 23rd. I had to start 40. I had to start dead last because with COVID, there's no qualifying or no practice. So I had to step into a NASCAR with 0 practice and go straight to the green flag. Which anybody that, even if you don't understand racing, it's a huge feat. And so now my next race is Darlington, which is a famous NASCAR track called the track Too Tough to Tame. So I head to Darlington in just 2.5 weeks. And the month of May is going to be insane. The month of May is one of the busiest months in motorsports. So I'll be racing NASCAR, 3 races back to back to back. And then I'll also be in Indianapolis, where the last 2 years in a row, I spot. Spotting is where you're up in a tower and you're watching over your driver, so to speak, and telling him what's around him, what's going on. And they're mandatory in certain types of racing. You have to have a spotter because the drivers can't see around them. And for the last 2 years, I've spotted for a man by the name Marco Andretti. And I'm sure anybody's
Mario's
grandson.
Oh, grandson.
Yeah. Michael Andretti is Mario's son, who's the owner of the team.
Right.
Who's been retired for many years now. So Marco Andretti has been the IndyCar driver for many years now. He's my age. He's only about 35. Right. And so for 2 years in a row, I've spotted for Marco Andretti at the Indy 500, which is an honor, and pretty amazing to do that. Marco was on the pole, qualified first. He was the first Andretti to qualify on the pole since Mario in the 60s. So I was there for that last year during COVID. And so I'll be spotting for Marco again for my 3rd year at the Indy 500. With the intention, again, now because I have this NASCAR ride and my new partnership with a friend and sponsor with Auto Parts for Less, we are planning on, sorry about that, I lost you for a second. We're planning on trying to make a start in the Indy 500 next year. So, yeah.
Well, there's more to come full circle. It's not just a phone call, come race, and you jump in a car, and it's so much more than people know. You turn the TV on, you see some great things, you watch the news, you see a clip, 15 seconds. This really gets us into the physicality and the mentality of racing. Just unbelievable. So Matt, seriously, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your incredible journey with us and your time on Castaways and just everything about your life that you shared. Your transparency is so refreshing. I just want to say to the viewers, remember to reach out to us on social media and look for Great Success on Facebook and Twitter. We'd love to hear from you, and you can find me, Mark Hoberman, on LinkedIn. Again, thanks so much to Matt Jaskol for being with us today. Viewers, don't forget to tune into our next show. This is Mark Hoberman. Thank you for watching Live the Educational Flame, and have a great day. Matt, thank you so much. Thank you.
Mark, I really appreciate letting me share my story. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame. To contact Mark Hoberman, email him at info@greatsuccess.com or visit him on social media through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Thank you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame.